Everybody, it's me, Andrew. Get out into nature and tune in for yourself. Resonate with the Earth's electromagnetic field via 432 Hertz, the universal frequency. Balance out psychologically and emotionally and further strengthen your brain and your heart's coherence as well. Get a plant-based diet going for yourself today and nurture yourself back into life. We are literally herbivores in our nature. Further balance out your physical body's pH level and get with alkalinity. Then you can generate some static electricity. Send me some love telepathically, set attention to your mind, and set intention to communicate. That is all there is to telepathy. You are now tuning in to Great Days. So today I'm gonna go over right, wrongs, and good, bads, right, and the shade of grays, nature, and I'm gonna go into depth on how there is no good and bad, right? Because this is purely concept. But let's get into this. So, good and bads, they don't actually exist. These are just concepts. Everything is very sacred, right? Everything is the divine within its essence, right? And this is the simplest I can put it. Good and bads are conceptualizations that maybe help for regulation or something, right? But when you go out into nature, there's no such thing as goods and bads, because once again, these are only agreed upon societally, collectively, especially within our race. So whenever you go out into nature, you can observe. If you stay out, however long you stay out in nature, you observe. You're not going to find a good or a bad to anything. There's just a happening, or there's just a flow of a natural flow of energy, right? An ecosystem, a system that is just flowing, right? You can't dissect anything, because there's no other person to, and obviously this is if you're alone in nature with no other with no other group or other person. If you're alone in nature, you're not going to find a good or a bad, because this is something that comes with society, right, and conditions. But whenever you go out into the natural world, or maybe even the animal world, there's just a happening. Things are just happening, right? There's no good, there's no bad. You can't say that there is a good or a bad to anything, because that doesn't make sense in the actual world. In the illusory world, which is the world we're living in right now, there's a lot of identification with goods and bads, which create a whole system of tensioning between the supposed opposites. But these opposites that are supposed to be, which are just conceptual, are they're conflicting. They're supposed to conflict, which is getting into system of light form and that whole system. So the good and bad as a concept doesn't exist. And the moment that you can recede into maybe deeper dimensions of mind, you can easily have an experience that backs up why that is the truth, being there's no good or bad, right? So going out into nature, let's say you throw yourself into the jungle alone, you can't say that anything is going to be good, and you can't say anything is going to be bad either. And the moment that you, the more time that you spend out in the jungle alone, without anybody else to talk to, without anything to read, or without anything, just silence, maybe the sounds of the jungle, you're going to have the realization that there is no good and bad. Because that's just how it works, or that's just how it is. That's the reality of it. That's actually what is, rather than the identification with opposites and tension, conflict, things like this. They don't exist. There's only one whole, one self, and then none. Or just no self, right? Non-being. Because you don't actually exist. And if you do go out into the natural world, one thing that will also happen if you spend enough time alone is that you will cease to exist. Because the world is also a conceptualization. It's been conceived out from us, right? So we're supporting the existence of the world. And the moment that we cease to support the existence of the world, it ceases to exist, right? By this I mean the whole world, the whole maya, the whole illusion, or the matrix is a collective conceptualization, or it's a collective delusion that we have all collectively agreed to conceive and support. If you leave it, you die, you cease to exist, you get lost, or you get found, right? So good and bad, this doesn't exist. Concept doesn't actually exist either. But you've identified with the dimension because it's to support the Maya, the illusory world, right? This is simple. So there's right and wrong, or there's good and bad. We can use this one because this is the most simple. This creates a system of karma and entanglement and attachment to help sustain the matrix, or the world, the Maya, the illusion. But as an individual, you can choose to leave it. You know, you can be of the world, or you can live in the world, but you don't have to be of the world. Meaning you can live in the world, but you don't have to be of it. You can transcend the world while still living in the world. This makes you, it's very interesting what happens, right? If you're able to transcend the world, but you're still living in it, this kind of just makes you, I don't have the word for it, right? There is a word, but I don't have the word. But asanya, maybe, right? Because everything becomes a dream at that point. Because life is a dream. But you gotta wake up. Which waking up to the fact that it is a dream involves leaving the show, right? You gotta leave it. You gotta transcend it. You gotta die. It's a dream. It doesn't exist. But you have to have the experience that's involved in the process of transcending it. It cannot remain a belief system because that doesn't support the transcendence itself. The transcendence needs an experience to support it, right? So you need to have the experience firsthand of dying or transcending it in order to live as though life is a dream, and then go deeper and deeper into it. So you have to or you have to let this happen for itself. So there's no individuality. It's one self, or no self. It's no self, because everything is impermanent, right? In its impermanency, tendencies cease to exist, right? And coming into more balanced states allows for deeper states of realization to flourish. This is simple. So, easily experienced when you allow the flow of energy by just letting everything go. You don't constantly want to struggle, because the struggling itself is the ego. This is will. I will do this. I will be, right? I will, that's the struggling. That's the ego wriggling around. That's why stillness is important. Because the moment that you're completely aligned, you can cease into non-self, non-being. And this allows for the death. This allows for your death. And that's transcendence of the ego, of the will. And the will no longer needs to be. And then liberation comes naturally, right? And the realization is synonymous with the liberation, the self-realized state. This is the enlightened state. And then living as life is a dream is sanya, which then everything is presence, because everything is gifted as much as you want it to be, right? If there is a you that is involved, but there is none, so then nothing is gifted either, but there's still presence. Let me see. So right and wrong, or good and bad, don't need to be supported. You can cut through the concept by just being present. Whenever you start to identify with rights and wrongs over excessively, it can lead to tension within yourself. And tension can literally correspond to energetical kinks, cloggage, things like this. But once again, if you're able to transcend the concept of good and bad experientially, then it's easily at that point realized that you become more liberated, because you cease to exist within the transcendence of the world, which is synonymous with conception, right? So becoming more meditative becomes a natural process that flourishes on itself, in itself. Every being has its state of meditation. You can go observe animals and they're in a state of meditation. Plants can be in a state of meditation because they can put you into meditative states if you surround yourself with certain plants. Everything, minerals too, rocks, are in states of meditation. Petrification can be a state of meditation. If you surround yourself with certain crystals, they can make you more meditative. There's a reason they're doing that, because they're having an influence on you. You're picking up on their vibration, which means they're in that state of meditation, or it's giving off that state of meditation. So everything has meditative state. It's not a practice. It's a flow. It just happens, right? You grow meditative. And that's all there is to it. When you do start expanding meditativeness or come into a meditativeness, which is just a degree of realization, you start to see beyond the veil, right? Things become very clear because you're opening your eyes, or you're opening your eye, you're opening your crown, you're opening yourself, your soul, vibrationally, you're opening up genetically, you're just opening. You start traveling the universe. Literally, it's not like a metaphor or anything like this. It's actual traveling. But you have to continue breaking through the illusion, because the illusion can continue to cascade itself over your eyes. And if you let it do that, it can kind of it can stagnate that whole expansion into cosmic consciousness, or the higher consciousness. But nature is definitely a source for being able to open yourself up. Nature is definitely the source for the realization. Nature is a source for the experience of transcendence. And it's that simple, right? So, do you thank everybody for watching once again. Peace out, one love, and have a great evening.